Frank GRAVIS. I'm a bass player, and I play Mark bass amps and Mark bass basses. And I'm very honored to be part of this interview series. So here we go. I started playing bass as a sophomore in high school. I was 16 years old. Previously, when I was in second grade, I started with piano, and then I went with trumpet in the third grade, and then in the fourth grade, I was playing guitar. And in the sixth grade, I started playing drums, and I played drums all through high school. And and when I was a sophomore in high school at age 16, I picked up the bass guitar, and I kind of never turned back because it was love. And I'm still doing it today, and I still love it today just as much as I did when I was 16. My first amplifier was a kit amplifier. It was actually a PA amp that a friend of my dad's built. It was an ICO, and I had a cabinet that he also built. It was kind of a replica of a Fender Bassman with two 12-inch speakers. It generated about 10 watts, and it didn't sound very good, but it at least got me started. And you know, I played first couple of years in high school with it in the stage band, which is how I really started to learn how to play. But then later on, my dad got me a Standell, and that was my first real professional amplifier. And it just went on from there. In my career as a musician, there were a couple of highlights. One of them was my first professional job, which was in a band when I was a senior in high school. We used to travel around. I was the youngest guy in the band. Everybody else was in their 30s and 40s. And we used to travel around all of South Texas playing dances. This band played society music and country music. And that's how I got started as a professional. And then after that, my first tour, which was with the Gold Diggers, which is a group of women that were actually on the Dean Martin television show. And we did 21 cities in 22 days on a bus. And that was, needless to say, a lot of fun, and that was pretty exciting. Then my next real challenge, or actually I shouldn't say challenge, it was an exciting moment, was you know, when I got my first 6-night-a-week job in San Antonio, which is where I'm from. It was in a nightclub, and I played 6 nights a week, and that's where I really learned how to play, you know, at that phase. Then after doing that, I played in a Mexican wedding band for a couple of years, and then I went to the University of Miami and went to music school there, and that's where I really learned a whole lot. I got a 6-night-a-week job there while I was in school, and the band that I was in played a whole bunch of very progressive music. You know, we played some Chick Corea songs, and we played dance music, and it was a kind of a mishmash of all kinds of different genres of music. And while I was there, Chuck Mangione picked me up, and that started me off on the next phase of my life. And I eventually moved to New York. And I started, my first gig in New York actually was with David Sanborn. And then after that, I played with Herbie Mann, and then I just went on from there, and was just you know, sort of a bass player for hire in New York, and I still am. My most important musical collaboration, I think, was with Hiram Bullock. We met at the University of Miami, and we connected. And he came to see me play, and I went to see him play. And then we at our professional jobs, and then we played in school a lot. We were actually a credit course. We were a trio with a drummer named George Mazzeo, who's still in Florida, and it was a credit course, and we did concerts at the school, and we also hung out a lot and played music, just him and me, and it was a lot of fun. And we maintained in touch, and we maintained our friendship. And he was the one that got me on David Sanborn's band, and then later on, in 1995, he asked me to play in his band, and I played in his touring band that would do European tours up until he passed away. And we wrote some music together, and it was a great. It was really great while he was alive. I first started playing Mark bass amps in 1999. I was on tour with Hiram Bullock, and we were slated to play at this club in Rome called Big Mama. And we had on our rider for a bass amp for whoever it was to provide me with an SVT. And this particular backline company that rented to Big Mama didn't have an SVT. So they sent this amp called Parsec that I'd never heard of. And I tried it out, and I played it on the gig, and it sounded great, just great. It had bottom, it really made my bass sound natural, and it had everything I needed out of a bass amp. So I said nice stuff about it at the time on the gig, and after the show. And then so as it turns out, like later on the next day, we're riding to the next town, and Clint DeGannon, who was playing drums with us, said to me, Frank, that bass amp sounded really good. And Hiram was listening, and he said, yeah, man, that amp sounded really great, and it really sounded totally cool. And I agreed with him, of course. And then so Clint said to me, you ought to give the manufacturer a call and see if they would be interested in an endorsement from you. And this way, every time we come back to Europe, they can have this amplifier for you. And I thought about it for a minute, and I said, well, that's not a bad idea. I kind of don't think along those lines because, I just don't. Clint has way better business skills than me. So, I was thinking about it, and the more I thought about it, the more sense it made. So I happened to take the manual to the amplifier with me because I was really interested in the amp and I wanted to learn more about it. And in the manual, there was a phone number. So I asked Patrizio Chiozza, who was our driver and our agent, if he wouldn't mind if later on we could call whoever it is on this number and see if they'd be interested in an endorsement. And he said, sure, I don't mind at all. So we got to the next town, we checked into the hotel, and I called Patrizio's room. And I said, Patrizio, come on, let's do this thing with this amp company. He said, I'll be right there. So he shows up, and we call the number. And Marco De Virgilis answers the phone. And they speak in Italian, and you know, I know very little Italian, so I didn't know really what they said. But you know, Patrizio told me later on. He said, you know, I'm Patrizio Chiozza. I'm on the road with the Hiram Bullock Band, and Frank GRAVIS, the bass player, is really interested in your amplifiers and was wondering if you'd be interested in an endorsement. And Marco apparently was pretty enthusiastic about it, and so you know, I got a hold of Marco. I emailed him, and you know, I had him send me an amplifier. It was their first production model Parsec. And he only sent the amp. He didn't send a speaker. And I wanted him to send me one. So I emailed him, and I called him, and I got no response. You know, I kept getting a busy signal or no answer, and he didn't respond to his emails. So in 2001, 2 years later, we played Big Mama again. And they had a Parsec amp there for me, and I was very happy about that. And a guy comes into the dressing room after the show and says, "Are you Frank GRAVIS?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I'm Marco De Virgilis." And I was like, "Marco, I've been trying to get a hold of you for the last 2 years. I wanted you to send me a speaker." He said, "Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I didn't respond, but I've been trying to get my new company together. It's called Mark Bass." He said, are you endorsing anybody right now?" And I said, "No, I'm endorsing you. I'm endorsing Parsec. That's who you know, I love these amps." He says, "Well, are you going to be back in Italy anytime soon?" And I said, "Well, as it turns out, in 2 weeks, I'm playing 9 nights at the Umbria Jazz Festival in Perugia." He said, "Okay, I'll have an amp for you. See what you think." He said, "What do you need?" And I said, "Well, I'd like a cabinet with 4 10-inch speakers and 1 cabinet with a 15-inch speaker underneath, and the most powerful amp you can give me." So he said, "Okay, I'll have something for you." So 2 weeks pass, and we go to the sound check in Perugia, and there's this amp, Mark Bass. It was, you know, a 410 cabinet and a 115 cabinet underneath, and he had the Club 450. That was the amp that he gave me, which was one of the silver face models that never made it to the United States. So I plugged into it, and I played a couple of notes at the sound check, and I was like, "Wow, this amp sounds great." So I played the amp, all 9 performances, and it was heavenly. It really sounded just great. So on the 7th night, Marco shows up, and he, after the show, he comes up to me and says, "Well, what do you think of the amp?" And I said, "Marco, this is like the best amp I've played in, I think, ever. It was balanced, it had punch, it had tone, it was just what I wanted an amp to sound like." And he smiled and said, "Oh, that's good. So let's talk." So we went to a restaurant somewhere in Perugia. It was a little, you know, a little place where we could have coffee and sit around. And we talked about, you know, basically our endorsement agreement. And he sent me the Club 450 and a 210 cabinet, much like the one I have back here, and a 410 cabinet, and I haven't looked back. That's all I've played since, and you know, I've gotten their updated gear. You know, the stuff that I have here is just great, and So that's how it started. And I'm, you know, here it is, you know, 22 years later, and I'm still playing it, and I'm still loving it, and I won't play anything else. I use now several. One of which you see behind me here. It's the Little Mark 800, and I have the Little Mark 3, and I have the 210 cabinet, and I have the 104 HF, and this is the 102 HF behind me. And the one that I use the most, however, is the CMD 121P and the New York 121 if I need more coverage. That one is actually my go-to amplifier. I use it more than just about any other because, you know, in New York City, light and portable is the way to go. So, I mean, it's very easy for me to just throw it in a taxi and go to a job, or I have even like carried it on the subway, and it's very easy to do, and it sounds great, just great. Um, it's my favorite amp, and you know, I love all of them, and I have used all of them, and I still continue to use all of them. But the CMD 121P is the one I use the most, and it sounds great and does everything I need to do. Mark Bass started making basses. They sent me this bass here. This is the Commandu 5. This is a great, great instrument. It is versatile. The woodwork is great. And it sounds just wonderful. And I appreciate it very much. It really is. It surprised me how good it is. I mean, it has a great sound. It feels incredible. And thank you. What makes Mark Bass special to me is the people behind it. Um, I've never seen a company that has the amount of love attached to it like Mark Bass. Mark Bass, from the top down, from Marco, Ricardo, Monica, Sandra, Cicinio, everybody that is associated with the company, and everybody I've met, everybody just loves the company, and they love the people that play their instruments, and you know, I love them back. You can feel the love with every note you play on a Mark Bass amp, because you know who is behind it, and you know, I'm very grateful to have found Mark Bass, and I'm very grateful that things turned out the way they did, and I appreciate it very much. You know, that this is really a great company. They make the best amplifiers I've ever played, and you know, I'm honored to be part of this series, and thank you. You know, you guys are the best in the world, and I'm grateful from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.